evening. Here is top news newsletter, starting with the headlines. President al-Assad killing civilians is terrorism, even if France brought Iranian policies to account. Iraqi forces repelled an attack. Carries a resume nuclear talks in Geneva. President Bashar al-Assad gave an interview to the Czech paper Literní Noviny and said that the problem lies with the West and it is not a new problem. It's related to the independence of our country. For instance, France wanted Syria to play a role with Iran concerning the nuclear file. What was required wasn't to be a part of that file, but to convince Iran to take steps which are against its interest, and we refused to do that. President al-Assad added that we have been suffering from extremism for more than 5 decades, and terrorism appeared in Syria in the 1970s. At that time, we called international cooperation to fight terrorism. In the West, we weren't aware of this problem, and Western politicians were short-sighted and narrow-minded. What happened in France proved that what we said was true. At the same time, this incident brought European policies to account because they are responsible for what happened in our region, for what happened in France, and maybe what happened earlier in other European countries. The problem can't be addressed in the way they addressed in Afghanistan in 2021. A group of congressmen visited Damascus at that time, and they were talking about invading Afghanistan in revenge for what happened in New York earlier, and he said this is not how you should do it, because fighting terrorism is similar to treating cancer. If we look at the European Union in general, we see that its member states didn't have the same position during the crisis. The Czech Republic and Romania were among the countries which maintained their relationship with Syria, but they don't support our government or agreed with it about everything or about some things or anything of that kind. President Bashar al-Assad said Western short-sightedness and support for terrorism in Syria were to blame for last week's attacks in Paris, and in his first reaction to the attacks on the Charlie Hebdo magazine, President al-Assad said he had repeatedly warned Western governments that their support for terrorist groups in Syria risks at the blowback of violence at home. And we needed to remind many in the West that we have warned for such incidents since the beginning of the crisis in Syria. President al-Assad said we need to remind many in the West that we have warned of such incidents since the beginning of the crisis in Syria, and we kept saying you mustn't support terrorists or give them political cover, or else this will impact your countries and your peoples. What happened in France has proved that everything we said was right. Iraqi forces repelled an attack by the so-called ISIL Takfiri group in al-Qasr port south of Busra, killing and injuring a large number of terrorists. The security forces thwarted a rocket attack involving 4 Katyusha rockets found just 500 meters from the port, as a chairman of Busra Security Committee said. Two improvised explosive devices found near an Iraqi vessel docking at the port were successfully dismantled and the rockets removed from their launcher, as he added. Members of the Iraqi Navy takes part in tactical training on October 21 in 2014, and the Iranian Navy is divided into 2 groups. The first one takes part in fighting against Islamic State militant groups in Anbar, and the second is in charge of security of vital ports in Qasr and Khor al-Zubar. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry and Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif resumed talks on Iran's nuclear program in Geneva. After a 5-hour meeting, Kerry returned to the Mandarin hotel for further decisions with Zarif, according to a senior State Department officials. Negotiation for a nuclear deal fell through for a second time in November when the parties failed to meet a self-imposed deadlines. The counterparts hoped to reach an agreement which would lift sanctions on Tehran in exchange for limits on uranium enrichment by June. Hundreds of Armenians gathered at the Russian militant base in Gyumri, Armenia's second largest city, demanding that Russian soldiers Permakov, who is accused of killing a family of six and injuring an infant, be handed over. Protesters also picketed the Russian embassy in Yerevan, Armenia's capital, and marched to the presidential palace. Permakov confessed to the crime after he was apprehended by Russian border guards at the Armenian-Turkish border. The deputy head of Armenia's police, Bogosian, told reporters. However, the motive for the killing is yet unknown. A special commission of the Russian Defense Ministry has been dispatched to the Russian military base on Monday to investigate. A source in Russia's military attorney department said that Permakov may face anywhere from 20 years behind bars to the life imprisonment. That's all for today. Thanks for joining us. I'm Inas Ahmed. Good night.